starting the third and fourth quarters, you're going to start seeing meaningful contribution to Curaleaf numbers coming off our European business. And before you know it, I think the European business is going to be the largest, if you compare it to state business, it's going to be the largest business in the Curaleaf portfolio, like compared to Florida, Arizona. Like we've got a couple of markets that are doing well over $200 million, like Arizona and Florida. Like this is going to be a $300, $400, $500 million business, 24 months from now.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Dime. I'm Brian Fields. With me, as always, is Kellen Finney. And this week, we got a very special guest. Second time returning to the podcast, Boris Jordan. Boris, thanks for taking the time. How you doing today?
Good to be back, Brian.
It's good to see you. Kellen, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Really excited to talk to Boris and kind of really excited to just dive into the future of cannabis. I think Europe's on the horizon, right? How are you, Brian?
I'm doing good. I think there's a lot of topics today, specifically about Europe, maybe the hemp company, maybe some fruit stick. We got a lot to talk about, Boris. And I know right now, today, you're overseas at Cannabis Europa, and I'd love to get, what is the number one topic that everyone's talking about at the event?
So I'd like to first lay out the vibe out here. This is very much what the U.S. was in 2015. Huge amount of enthusiasm. The Mary Jane conference in Germany a couple of weeks ago had 55,000 participants. This conference is packed. Lots of conversations, dinners, lunches, everything is really, really energetic. People are fired up over the German decision on April 1st. Other countries are starting to follow suit. It's all good. It's all good. The one thing that's missing, and that's missing globally from cannabis right now, is money. But in terms of the operators, in terms of the industry, products, customers, everything, very exciting.
Is there a topic that's undervalued amongst the community from conversations? Obviously, your experience in the United States, you've learned a lot of lessons. Is there something that's missing from currently Europe's climate that's saying, hey, if we continue on this path, we're going to end up like America did in certain areas?
So that's what's interesting. A lot of people here are talking about, let's not do it the way the Americans did it. Let's make sure we do it right. Let's make sure we don't do it the way the Canadians did it. Interesting enough, I just got out of a conversation with people that said to me, we're looking at the disaster that was Canada, the overproduction, the overbuilding, the over this, the over that. And so let's not make these mistakes. So yes, there's a lot of conversation in Europe about what went wrong in North America and how they want to do it differently.
Are there certain areas that are being implemented? Are they leaning on you based on your experience in order to try to fix some of those unknowns and potholes that might be in the current path and say, hey, we take it to the right based on my experience here. This is what I've seen in this state. This is what we go here. Are they leaning on you? Are there other people that are kind of leaning? How does that work?
Listen, I think the Europeans are doing it the way they want to do it. And the one thing I would say that's dramatically different, and that is that the Europeans are leading from the center. They're leading from the federal governments on how to do it, right? The regulation is coming from the top going down. And that creates, in many ways, a much more transparent, much safer environment to operate, because it's not like the United States where you don't know where you stand, whether it's on the hemp business or the cannabis business or money. The banks don't know whether they can bank it. They don't know whether, like the government saying, the government is not telling the banks that they can't bank cannabis. The banks are afraid to bank cannabis because the government's telling them nothing. That's the problem. The exchanges in the U.S. haven't been told that they can't list cannabis companies, but they're not doing it because the government's not telling them anything as to what they're calling them and saying, can we list cannabis companies? And they're saying nothing. So when you have the federal government not giving guidance on how a giant industry like cannabis, which now, if you look at it in the United States, between the regulated cannabis industry and the hemp industry, could be a $60 billion industry already, and there's no freaking rules around it. And that's the problem that we're having in the United States. And that's what's causing investors to get very frustrated and causing many other people, because they don't know whether they can even invest in this sector. And that's the real problem. We need leadership from the top. And the problem in Europe, it's from the top. Whether it's Israel, whether it's Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's Poland. I mean, for God's sakes, Poland is regulating this better than the United States is. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? So, that's not to speak down at the Poles. That's just sheer mass and scale, right? I mean, Poland was a communist country, 25, 30 years ago, right? So, and they're ahead of this than the United States is on cannabis. So, we need the federal government to stop messing around, and we need them to get involved, and they need to start regulating, need to stop listening to, the pharma companies and to the hard alcohol companies and all the special interests that are trying to stop this industry, because they're not stopping it. It's going, and it's going fast.
Is there a unification within the countries in Europe? Like, is Germany and Spain and all these countries talking about export-import, or are they kind of just solely focused internally right now?
They don't have to talk about it because you can do it. The EU has a certain set of rules. I mean, I manufacture and I grow and I do it in Portugal and in Spain, and I send it all over Europe. I can send it to the UK, I can send it to Germany, I can send it to Poland. I put it on airplanes, the products, I put it on ships, I can put it on trucks and truck it across the place. I mean, it's like the hemp industry. You can do anything you want, right?
So they're way ahead of the US.
Yeah.
Way ahead.
It's not something we stress out about here in Europe, is how to move our product from one place to another. In the United States, you go through 3 heart attacks before your product gets to the location it's supposed to get to.
So one of the assets I want to talk about is Northern Green Canada. I know that one is a key supplier in your team, and then recently you had an acquisition of it. Can you talk about that and why it was important to bring it into the inner fold?
So listen, our partners, we acquired a company in Germany called 420 Pharma. Those guys were working very closely with NGC. NGC was their main supplier. They were a wholesaler in the industry on a white label. So they basically would buy the product from NGC, and then they would label it, package it, brand it, and send it out in Germany. And so when we acquired 420 Pharma, we got to know the NGC people pretty well. What happened pretty soon was we were 60% of the... We were their largest customer. We were buying 60% of their product, if not more. I think in recent months it was up to 75% of their product was. So it's interesting. 100% of their manufactured product was bought by us. 100%. But they were also keystoning products. So in Canada, where they were sourcing from other growers, that was the product that they were doing outside of Curaleaf. So what we realized is, and then what happened was they needed to grow because Curaleaf was growing so fast. So they came to us for financing to build out their facilities. And so we built one room, and then we were on the way to building another room. And I was like, well, wait, what's going on here? We're giving them working capital. We're financing their rooms. We buy all their product, and we're paying them 25% margin. And really, they're our business. So I just negotiated, and we bought them. And it was a hugely successful buy for us because we got the facility at a very good price. We now capture all that margin that they were taking away from us, and we can control the quality, and we can control the supply chain. So it made all the sense in the world to buy that for us. And now every dollar we put in to expand that facility is we're putting into our own company rather than putting it into somebody else's company.
It was also a very strategic investment if you look at it from like retrospectively speaking. I know you didn't go into it like this, but you provided them financing. They built out a room successfully. They continued to be successful. And you're like, okay, now we can acquire them as a business after they've kind of gone through and proven that they can take capital and work with it positively.
Yeah. The problem is they were taking our capital.
Yeah.
So now I'm just putting money into my own business rather than putting it into somebody else's business.
Totally.
But one would assume the acquisition of that kind of fits really nicely in. You're already working so closely together, so now it's just it was a match made in heaven, and it would have been crazy if we didn't do it, right? And so now we have, and it completed our supply chain. So now we have really good sun-grown greenhouse flower coming out of Terra Verde, our facility in Portugal. We have indoor flower coming in from Canada. We've got 3 EU GMP facilities now to handle all the drying and all processing capacity. I mean, we're in a very good place right at the right time. I mean, sometimes, listen, Curaleaf has fucked a lot of things up, but this one we got really right. And we got the timing right, and we got the acquisition right, and this one really worked out. You know what they say? You got to get more of them right to survive, right? Absolutely. Is there still thoughts to use some of those outside customers you talked about? You said that right now, originally NGC, you were 75% of business. Are you still considering that, or is that one where you're shutting
For the most part, we took over. Our demand just required us. I mean, frankly, we're building out more capacity there now because we need more of it. So yes, obviously we honored the contracts that they had, but everything going forward is going to Curaleaf.
Does that acquisition provide the opportunity to kind of, as it grows, be able to utilize its infrastructure to like export to, say, Australia or New Zealand as well as Europe?
Made our first export. We made our first shipment to Australia a couple of weeks ago. We made our first shipment to New Zealand a couple of weeks ago. We're
Congratulations.
going ahead. We're moving. We're moving. We're wasting no time on those markets. We're super excited. Obviously, Australia is a bigger market with slightly lower margins, more competition. New Zealand is a smaller market, but very high margin. So the combination together is really, really good for us.
Was that part of the attractive aspects of NGC, was understanding that you could have pipelines?
It was a secondary aspect. It was like the, the icing on the cake, right? It was the cake was what was important. Europe is the primary market, but the fact that they already had open relationships with those markets really gave us an in, and now we're sending teams down there to further develop, kind of like Poland was as well. We got into Poland because of NCG's product. It was very popular there. The 420 guys were buying it and then sending it into Poland, and really that gave an introduction. Then we made some acquisitions in Poland to go downstream, and we're going to do the same thing in Australia and New Zealand.
Australia, though, from a market size, did I read correctly that it's potentially twice the size of Germany?
Well, at the moment, it is a large market, bigger, but it's going to become smaller very quickly, right? I mean, Germany's 84 million people. So Germany is going to dwarf the size of Australia. By the first quarter of next year, it's going to be twice the size of the Australian market.
But it gives your team the ability to accelerate and say, okay, here's a massive
growth
market.
Listen, it gives us, I said it on the last call. For me, it's all about our brand. Here it is, Curaleaf, right on my sweatshirt. I used to be a banker. It's funny, I would never walk around with a suit that said, Renaissance Capital or First Boston. But I do, in the consumer business, brand is important, really important. So we want to get us on as many shelves as possible. And that's why we did the Hemp Company too, right? Our goal is to get that Select and Curaleaf and Grassroots brand as many shelves, not only in the country, in the US, our primary market, but globally. That's our goal.
So let's talk about the Hemp Company. Obviously, there's a launch coming up, and I think it's really important because a cannabis size as large as yours to go into the hemp industry, there's obviously been a lot of back and forth on their differences, the same. Take us through the strategy and the importance of...
So, Brian, I've been looking at this for 3 years. I've been fighting an uphill battle, and I'm not going to be shy to say there was a lot of opposition internally as well, because you got to rein me back sometimes. I get it. But I'm always pushing the envelope. I want to be in this market 3 years ago, to be honest. We weren't ready 3 years ago. We've been doing a lot of work. We've done a lot of legal work on this. We've done a lot of regulatory work. We had to perfect the supply chain. We were very concerned. We wanted to make sure it was completely compliant with the Farm Bill. Like Curaleaf, we got, as I said on my last podcast with you guys, we got a bullseye on our back because we're the largest operator in the world. And so, people look at us, and if a regulator wants to send out a message, the way to do it is slap Curaleaf a couple of times, and everybody gets the message. So we wanted to make sure that we were fully compliant with the Farm Bill rules of the game. And so our products are clean, only natural, no synthetics of any kind in our products. And yes, does that limit maybe the product range we can put out to some other guys? Yes, but you know what? I'll take it. As long as I'm compliant, I'll take it. And the concept behind the Hemp Company was I wanted to create a marketplace where everyone can sell. And by the way, I could even spin out the Hemp Company someday from Curaleaf and maybe give ownership rights in it to other companies, because what I want to do is create a marketplace and show responsibility that we're doing this the right way. We're not going to sell crap to the consumer. And we're going to gate it so it's only 21 and over. It's only natural product. It's safe, tested product, just like in the regulated space, right? And that's super, super important. You may have seen the LA Times article, about the products in California. I think this is very important. The industry needs to self-regulate. The industry needs to play by the rules and make sure we're doing things the right way. And so that's a big focus for me. And that's what I wanted to create the Hemp Company as a retail outlet where not only Curaleaf or Select or Grassroots, but also anyone can sell on that platform, that as long as they meet the safety and regulatory environment legally, and they can come in and sell their products.
When you're spinning up the Hemp Company, is it bringing new resources into this team? Are you hiring more? How do you separate the resource utilization from personnel standpoint?
So we have an absolute separate subsidiary of Curaleaf that's running that business, and shortly we'll be making some announcements about the leadership in that area.
What do you say to the people who say you're trying to be everything means you're excellent at nothing?
Yeah, that's what everybody told Jeff Bezos for about 15 years, from 1999 to about 2010. And I think he's doing all right now.
So far, so good.
I mean, he started out as a book company, and now look where they are.
Yeah, he's on the move.
Listen, I have to tell you something, Brian. I don't really care what they say on Twitter. I mean, it's just a small group of people. I know I worked with the largest investors in the world. This is if we were listed on NASDAQ and if people like BlackRock could invest in us right now, I'm telling you, we'd have them all in our stock, because this is what the largest, smartest investors in the world want to see. They want to see companies being bold, aggressive, expanding, building their brands, building their franchises, and growing. And I think what you're going to see in the second half of this year is you're going to see Curaleaf separate from the pack in growth. I bet you in the second quarter you're going to see it flat to down numbers across the board, because U.S. markets are the hemp business is competing. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to tell you right now, 3 MSO CEOs called me yesterday and said they're getting into this business. Okay, and I was traveling, so 3 of them told me that, oh, Boris, we're getting into this business too. So I think you're going to see more and more people get into it, because I believe the industry's not growing right now, not because there isn't demand and there isn't new people coming into the market. It's not growing because the hemp market came about, and you can now go and buy cheaper product. Because why is MSO product more expensive, or why is generally regulated market more expensive than illicit, right? Because of the tax rates and the crazy regulatory environment where we have to build these giant facilities in every state. So the cost of amortizing and depreciating all that, and the cost of financing all that, is prohibitive. And so we have to price our product at a much higher price to be able to the hemp guys don't have to do any of that, right? So they pay regular federal taxes, if they pay anything. So they don't test, they don't do anything, and they went out there and then they created a $25-30 billion industry overnight, right? And so that's what's hurting the regulated cannabis industry. So by Curaleaf going into this industry, not only am I hoping for great results in this industry, but I'm hoping to push the conversation to the government to say, you got to deal with the problem. Here, you've now got an MSO, the biggest player in the regulated market, getting into the hemp market. Maybe we need to sit down at the table and figure out how we're going to run this thing, right? Because you're not putting this genie back in the bottle. I mean, if there's one thing the hemp market did, it secured the future of cannabis in the United States, because it's now like a $60 billion industry. Nobody shuts down $60 billion industry. The other thing is, no one in Washington is going to touch a farmer. They're just not going to touch farmers. Okay, farmers rule the game, right? So I think we're in a pretty good position here now.
Are you guys only going to launch these products initially in the U.S. market, or are you going to kind of piggyback it globally as well simultaneously?
Anywhere where I can sell it, I'm going to sell it, because if I can transport it, move it, because we got one facility out of Kentucky that we built for this, and if I can move these products across the world, I'll do it. So obviously, we got to look at the regulations. But for instance, I'm here in Europe, and my guys came up to me and they said there's 2 markets in Europe where we can sell our hemp-based products. We're already talking to people right away. I said, go do it as fast as we can.
And the beverage market, I know you've been a fan of for a while. So I'm assuming as you've watched all the changes go on, you've already, I think in Massachusetts, if I recall correctly, I know this is one that's very important. So has it been one where, as you've watched the markets kind of expand and this category start to explode, you looked internally and said, hey, we got to be in front for the beverage?
Yeah, listen, let's be honest. The hemp business, the other interesting thing about the hemp business, and although this is still anecdotal, I believe the evidence is growing every day. It's a different customer base than the regulated market. The regulated market is the OG market. It's the traditional cannabis user that was either in the illicit market that's gone into this. The hemp market, because of the nature of the products, is a completely different consumer. And that consumer, which is the traditional U.S. consumer, is the highest demand product that we have in the United States, right? From energy drinks to sports drinks to sugar drinks to non-sugar diet drinks to alcohol stuff. It's the biggest segment in the industry, and you can't not be there, right? We have to be in that segment. Everybody poo-pooed me in the past. Now everybody wants to get into this market on the cannabis side. But the seltzer is just the beginning for us, right? We're going to go into teas. With the product line, we're going to launch it under the hemp brand. Is the Select Zero Proof is going to be massive. Like, we're going to be in a lot of different categories of drinks. We want to be a powerhouse in any form of drink that uses cannabis or uses THC and CBD and CBN as part of its components. We want to be there. We want to be a leader.
So internally, the thought process is hemp and cannabis is under one statistical umbrella when you're looking to expand the kind of the market category
Absolutely.
as a whole.
For me, it's just a product made for slightly different ingredients and slightly different supply chain.
Got it. And then in regards to beverages and the Select brand, was there any talk internally about doing a different brand for the beverages, or was always internally we wanted to take Select and push it out wider?
There was definitely conversation. There was definitely pushback on using Select, but overruled. I love the Select brand. It's done so well on the vape side. It is absolutely the leading under almost every statistic, whether it's BDS or Hoodie or anything statistic that Curaleaf. The Select brand leads in the category of vapes. It's an easy brand. It's recognizable, and I'll tell you honestly, the distributor said we want the brand, and I was surprised by that because I thought no cannabis brands were nationally recognized yet. But listen, the national distribution company said we want Select.
So all the states can ship hemp products, or not all the states can ship hemp products?
So at the moment, we're starting out with 26 states where we're 100% sure we can ship hemp products. Other states we're going to work on to see whether or not we can do it or not.
And that is regulatory issues why those other states don't allow those? Because I think some people...
We, as I said, everything we're doing, we want to be compliant, not only on the federal basis, but also on the state. Don't forget, there are states that are clamping down on this stuff. And I don't want to be illegal in those states either. Curaleaf operates. Listen, do we mess up? Of course we do. Everybody does when you're growing as quickly as we are. But we want to be compliant in every market that we go into.
So with each one of these states, do you guys have different distribution partners? Do they share distribution partners? How does the whole shelf space aspect work?
So the one thing that nobody noticed was the fact that we're doing this in partnership with DoorDash. I thought that was kind of interesting yesterday. But anyway, it's a $50 billion U.S. distribution company. So
no
listen, we are going to be working with DoorDash in all of their markets, obviously, that we can work in, just like they have got their rules as well. We're going to be working with individual state distributors. We're going to be working with national distributors. We're going to be working direct to consumer, D2C, through the Hemp Company. I want to distribute this as widely as we can. It's work in progress. It's early stage. It's in many ways the same thing we did with Europe, right? This is not going to move the needle this quarter or next quarter or the quarter after. But is this going to move the needle a year and a half to 2 years from now? Yes, it will. And that's the whole idea, right? I'm planning at Curaleaf always 3-4 years ahead. Where's my growth going to come from? And, we're seeing the growth as I said, people are going to see the growth out of the European business in our numbers in the second 2 quarters of this year, right? I mean, the second quarter, it's only 3 months into the German program. Obviously, we're growing, but it's not meaningful yet. Starting the third and fourth quarters, you're going to start seeing meaningful contribution to Curaleaf numbers coming off our European business. And before you know it, I think the European business is going to be the largest, if you compare it to state business, it's going to be the largest business in the Curaleaf portfolio, like compared to Florida, Arizona. Like we've got a couple of markets that are doing well over $200 million, like Arizona and Florida. Like this is going to be a $300, $400, $500 million business, 24 months from now. So very exciting.
Slightly switching gears, Fruit Stick. I'm going to read you a quote. Approximately 90% of the growth in the vape category is driven by convenient all-in-one products with unique flavors and formats leading the way. Can you elaborate and explain why that is so important and why your team positioned Fruit Stick like that?
Well, listen, there's no surprise in the world that people like good tasting products. There's a reason why we have taste buds. There's a reason why we have Michelin chefs. There's a reason why there's sugar drinks and stuff like that. People want a good tasting product, right? And the newer consumer that's coming into the sector isn't necessarily a cannabis OG. And I know the OGs are going to go nuts when I say this, but they don't want necessarily the taste of cannabis. They might want the slight effect of cannabis, the entourage effect that the terpenes and the THC give you, but they want a nice tasting product, right? And that's what we're using, naturally derived citrus or botanical products to create the taste in the Fruit Stick. And it's been a huge, Brick was our most successful launch. That was the 2-gram vape pen that we launched. It's been massive. In all the years of Curaleaf's existence, that's our single biggest successful launch. And now on the back of that, we took and we launched that was more about the device, right? That was more about the device. This one's more about the flavoring and the product. And so this is a very different product than what we sold in the past. And, we're not targeting, I want to make it clear, anyone under 21 with this product. But, adults like a good tasting product as well. And because this is not a cancerous product, like I get it why they limited for nicotine down to, I think it's just mint or something like that, the federal government. But this cannabis doesn't kill. It's a different thing, right? Cannabis is not a cancerous product. It doesn't have these things. So we can add a little bit of flavoring. As long as we keep it out of the hands of minors, I think we're good. And we're only selling fruit stick, by the way. And we're not even selling vapes through the hemp line because we haven't found a way to make compliant natural product vapes yet. We haven't. And I'll be open about that. We're working on it, but we haven't found it. And I don't know whether we will. There's some aspects that it makes it very difficult to make a commercially viable product. So we're only selling this in our dispensaries. And as you know, in the dispensaries, there's total control over where this product goes and who it goes to.
With the kind of fruit stick vape pens, you're also kind of playing into the fact that there's a lot of e-cigarettes that look really similar, right? And now that they taste very similar, you're going to bring on this huge consumer demographic that was afraid to hit a vape pen because of the smell as well, right? So was that anything that kind of factored into the decision-making process when you guys were looking at launching this type of product?
So we're always trying, just like the hemp company, I'm always trying to expand the TAM, right? Expand the total addressable market. This addresses a consumer that is looking for a different taste than the cannabis smell, right? I mean, look, Ron DeSantis doesn't like the cannabis smell. Maybe he'll like fruit stick.
Totally.
I think he likes anything right now.
I'm going to send Ron a box of fruit stick.
He needs it.
To me, fruit stick appeals to the soccer mom, the illicit category and the marketing philosophy of the one that is the decision maker in the household, and the one that, if it can be converted in a discreet way, is a game changer for all.
I agree. And that's where we're going, and we're hopeful. And by the way, the launch has been very successful. It may even be as successful, not more successful. It's still early. It's a month, so it's difficult to tell. But the early numbers are showing it may be even more successful than Brick. And Brick was single-handedly our most successful launch ever.
So just last question real quick, the hemp and the cannabis industry, what do you want to see, DC or people going forward? How do you see those two industries merging together, separated? What would you like to see happen? What would you do if you were in charge?
I'm hoping, and so far it looks like it, I'm hoping we're raising the dialogue in the United States about this farce. I mean, let's be honest, DeSantis' farce in Florida, right, where he allowed the hemp industry to sell intoxicating products across the state, but he doesn't want to have adult use cannabis. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, what a freaking oxymoron that is. I mean, unbelievable. And they get away with it. I mean, these politicians get up on a stand and listen, I'm a Republican and I think the governor's done a great job. I live in Florida. I'm a Florida resident. I think he's done a fantastic job. But there's some things that that what he's doing here, he doesn't believe it. It's interest groups. Right? Because it's the dumbest, craziest. Like if he went against intoxicating hemp and against adult use cannabis, I'd say, you know what, Ron, I'm not in agreement with you, but at least you're consistent, right? But what he did here just shows that these politicians are bought, right? They're absolutely bought. So the hemp industry is so powerful that they were able to sway him against the cannabis industry. So what I'm hoping with this decision, and I've heard it from many people in the hemp industry in the last 24 hours, people, CEO of one of the biggest hemp processors I met with today here. He's actually in Europe at this conference. We were talking and he said, Boris, we're so happy. First, that you took the position when, remember that amendment came out, and I came out with a statement against the amendment in the Farm Bill that would make this illegal. And what I'm hoping, number one thing we need to do is the cannabis industry needs to align with the hemp industry. And why does it need to align? Because the cannabis industry needs to realize the hemp industry has a much more powerful lobby than we do. That's just a fact. And sometimes you got to be humble and understand somebody's doing something smarter or is more powerful than you. We need to align with them, and we need to go to the federal government together and insist on equal representation, equal regulation for the whole industry as a whole. And I think we win if we do that. We don't lose. And so I want to get rid of the competition between the two, and I want to bring the two together and go into Washington and say, okay, now you've got not a $30 billion market, but now you got a $60 billion market. that includes agriculture down to processors, all up and down the supply chain. Probably over 1 million people that are employed by this sector. Now we have a bigger platform to lobby DC for fair, equitable regulation.
I love it. Boris, I appreciate you taking the time. This was a lot of fun. I know you got a crazy day, so thanks for making time for us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Boris.